Welcome to Tehachapod, the City of Tehachapi's podcast, where we share conversations with local leaders, business owners, and community members. Don't miss an episode. Be sure to follow and subscribe to learn something new and discover ways to get involved in our community. It's Tehachapod time. Key Budge, Corey Costelloe, Greg Garrett joining us today, guys. We've got Don Marsh, our Development Services Director, and special guest Chris Carlson, the General Manager of the Golden Hills Community Service District. Chris, welcome.
Thanks.
You're first timer here.
This is a first time. Feels like a first time.
But he's a big fan. He's a big fan of the show.
He's a first timer, but we see you, work with you, talk with you all the time. We have a very good working relationship between the city and Golden Hills CSD.
Probably the best it's been in the history of both agencies.
I agree with that. You know, we're one big valley and we have some political boundaries, but we're all Tehachapians.
And it's important that we have this collaborative nature and talking together and working together. And, you know, you work through issues and problems and what are successes and, you know, where we hit roadblocks, and having that open conversation benefits our constituents.
Every community, you've heard me say this before, Key, communities around us need to be healthy. If they're not healthy, we're not healthy. If we're not healthy and they're healthy, that's a problem also, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. We all need to be healthy with this common goal.
And with today's topic, what we wanted to invite Chris into the studio. Recently, the two of you got together and co-authored a letter to the community. Mm-hmm. And we really want to highlight that, and we want to talk specifically about the things that are in that letter that was printed in the Tehachapi News, because it's important to hear from the voices that were behind the drafting of that letter and putting it out to the public. And that's today's topic, is we're going to talk about water in Tehachapi Valley and what it means to both the city, Golden Hills, and also what's going on with Tehachapi Cummings County Water District. So let's kind of start about the nexus of the letter and how we got together and why we decided it was important to explain to the community what's going on and what we see.
Well, I think, you know, one voice is better than multiple voices if everybody understands, you know, the challenges of the opportunities in front of them. Again, Tehachapi is one valley. We are a one water basin. Tehachapi has three basins: the Tehachapi Basin with the city and Golden Hills share, and then we have Bright Valley Basin, and then we have the Cummings Valley Basin. And they're all managed differently, if you will, with the same goal in mind, but certainly there are three different water basins. And then there's the state water project, you know, the California aqueduct that's brought up. So we have two kind of water conversations going on in the region.
But the beautiful dynamic is that some of us manage these agencies. We live in the other agencies. I myself, obviously Golden Hills, but I live in Bear Valley. So each agency is responsible for their own actions, but we're all reliant on this state water project.
Yeah, I live in Golden Hills. My wife and I bought our house 30 years ago, way before I started at the city, but I work at the city. So perfect example,
right.
Actually.
So
matters.
We're relying on each other to do the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point in my life, I think I've lived in every community.
You move every six and a half months or something.
Growing up, it was a lot of time in Golden Hills, and then, you know, older, it was Bear Valley, city. I take that back. I never lived in Stallion. I lived in Bright Valley, and then in the city now. So I've experienced them all, as many people do. They do tend to move around in their tenure here.
And Don's the only one that's lifetime city. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Bear Valley.
Oh, did you?
See,
there
you go.
We first moved to Tehachapi. We lived in Bear Valley.
And then Golden Hills, actually, after that.
And Golden Hills, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I get easily distracted. Squirrel.
We want to talk about the state water project water and the misconceptions involving SWP. Don, that's something that you talk about whenever we kind of pass sometimes in the hallways, the misconception about where our drinking water comes from.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that people don't even understand at this point where their water comes from. But both Golden Hills and the city, you know, there are no residents in either of our districts that get water directly from Tehachapi Cummings County Water District or from the State Water Project. The State Water Project water that's delivered is used for agricultural use or a little bit of irrigation use in the city for parks and the high school football field, that kind of stuff. But nobody gets State Water Project water delivered to their house, period. All of that water that's delivered to people's homes comes from either the city or, in Chris's case, Golden Hills CSD. That water is groundwater. It comes from the native water that falls from the sky and is collected and soaks into the ground. That water is pumped out of the ground and then delivered to everybody's homes. So again, nobody gets State Water Project water delivered to their house, period.
And I might point out that the water table is probably as healthy as it can be or has ever been, right? When the State Water Project, the adjudication and the State Water Project back in the day, visionaries, quite frankly, with Tehachapi Cummings Water District, the formation, but there was drastic overpumping of our basin and different things like that. And so right now, our basin is well managed by Golden Hills and the City of Tehachapi. We do not pump or overpump, and we do not pump water we don't own. Mm-hmm. So we're managing our assets extremely well.
And if you think about if you look through annual reports of the Water Master annual reports, it shows who owns what, right? And we're only allowed to pump 2/3 of what we own. So there's always leaving some back in the basin for the health. But there are some folks that haven't used their water rights in decades, and even Tehachapi Cement being one of them, they use some, but they keeping an average of like 1,000 acre feet a year in the ground. And that hasn't been touched in 50 something years. So that does speak to the entire health of the basin, because not even everything that's allocated is used. And then there's always that leave behind of 1/3.
Well, it's kind of twofold, because at 66%, which was in like 1972 when they amended that original, that was to ensure that the basin got healthier, right? It wasn't an end-all be-all.
Yeah.
So in the last 50 years, we've had that 66%, plus you've had users that haven't utilized the full threshold, right? And then you've had SWP artificial replenishment. So how full is the basin? And we say it's healthy, but could it be too healthy?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we may not be maximizing that resource. Those of us in the business kind of believe that, but we don't have the actual empirical data to prove it. But we really do feel like that the water basin is basically full. The data kind of hints to that, but we can't really prove that.
But if you keep screaming it's a finite resource, don't you want to maximize it to the highest capacity that you can?
Yeah. And a lot of those water rights do speak to the economic transition we've seen. When those water rights were initially doled out, a lot of it were small family farms, 300 acre feet here and there. The city got a big chunk at the time. Golden Hills was coming into, small at first, and then there was some amendments to that. The Monolith Cement at the time was kind of, they didn't know what they were going to do. They got a big chunk. And so as the economy has shifted, and again, the United States went industrial in the early 1900s, and that's happened here as we've shifted away from small farming operations, and those rights have gone unused, or sometimes they have been sold. Golden Hills has bought some, the city's bought some when they become available. And so, that's kind of a reflection of how the economy has shifted from agricultural based to what we are now, more of a, industrial based economy all around us.
Mm-hmm. So if we look at our drinking water is the native water that we pump, what is the importance of SWP? Why is that part of the conversation? Because me as the resident, I don't get it. Okay, we're pumping the water out of the ground, great. Where does SWP come into play for us?
Right, when you think water's water, the native safe yield takes into calculations of environmental recharge, right? You have your snow melt, your rain, all those things. If you put that into a formula, you go, okay, this much goes in, this much we can take out. Well, knowing that Tehachapi would continue to grow, they designed a plan to bring in artificial replenishment, the SWP. So in the instance where you start to extract more than nature can provide, you have to do it artificially, and that's where we're at, is the SWP water.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually, all these years since 1973, or even before that, all the additional demand for water consumption has really been taken up by these native water rights. We've been able to live off the native water, like Chris said, the water that nature provides to us through rain and snow. We've been able to live off that water this entire time.
A little creative financing. I mean, we've leased over the years to supplement. I mean, you can make relationships with your partners to ensure that everybody can get enough based on the rules that are in place.
And banking water, too. You guys have done a great job banking water.
Right. We took advantage of a couple wet years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that all the growth that we've seen in Golden Hills and the city, and over the years, that growth has been absorbed by these native water rights, and so we haven't relied on State Water Project water up until now. But the amount of that water that we have in excess of our demand is constantly decreasing because the amount of water we use every year goes up by another 10 or 20 acre feet. And so, the city owns about 2,000 acre feet that we can pump. Our demand is about 1,850, 1,900 sometimes. It really depends on the weather a lot. But anyways, we still have a buffer there of 100, 150 acre feet per year. But that number is it's decreasing, that amount of buffer or excess water rights that we have. So the other secondary source of water that we have is state water project water that we should be able to purchase from Tehachapi Cummings County
And
Water
that's
District.
the rub, right?
That is
When
exactly
the
the rub.
formation documents, to be clear, the formation documents of Tehachapi Cummings County Water District state that in the 1980s or so, that the pendulum would swing away from ag and more to people. And here we are, 2025, and we've reached that threshold, or we're going to here soon, right? And so we need to access that water. That the property tax, the property owners have been taxed since day one. Every year, if you look on your property tax bill, you are subsidizing the district and the water that's being pumped up the hill, and you're not receiving the benefit of that water.
Well, I did recently hear Tom Neisler mention at the Bear Valley Community Service District meeting that he acknowledged that, and that the formation did say that it was originally more ag and it would start to shift towards M&I, but he did make a statement that not now. We don't want that now. We want it to remain a farming community.
Is it going to be at his choosing when that happens, or should the taxpayers, or the legal documents dictate that?
Well, it's not just the taxpayers, it's the ratepayers. It's one and the same. So they're getting
In this
taxed
case.
on their property taxes, but we're also charging them a water bill, right? And a portion of that we use to go find new water rights.
That's right.
And it's not, this conversation that this is an agricultural community, that was out the window in the 1970s and 80s. As I mentioned earlier, the small family, the News Ranch of the world is gone, right? We're down to one or two small apple providers, and they have their own water rights and they live within their own water rights means. Folks like Pulfers that do a great job, but it's more boutique farming now. Bright Creek, that kind of stuff. Fun to kind of get the city folks up from Bakersfield, and they get to take Instagram selfies.
Legitimate
and stuff.
businesses, they do make money. Yeah, they contribute to the local economy for sure.
But it's not the operation and lifeblood of the community because of all the industries we have around us now. And so, I was asked that question the other day in a career technical education meeting. The FFA advisor at the high school asked me, "Can you get me in contact with some of the family farms around here? Because I'd like to have them come and speak to the students." And I told her, "Ma'am, there aren't any. They don't exist anymore. Like, this was 60 years ago, yes, but they don't exist anymore. That land has basically either been sold off or it's leased to a large grower," which is the case, honestly, across the country. Whether you're talking cattle, you're talking crops, all across California is certainly the case, and across the country. A lot of this stuff has been, basically consolidated under, one or two major banners.
Well, and I've always wondered, and more recently this is Tehachapi, right? Land of Four Seasons. Doesn't that limit the growing months, the true growing months? I mean, why such a large agricultural presence up here?
Well, if you listen to Tom Neisler, it's because of cost. Our water is cheap.
Well, we're subsidized, so it costs, check me on this, but around $1,600 per acre foot to pump up the hill, right, from the California aqueduct. And that water is sold for $400 and something to Grimway.
Yes.
Right? Let's say it.
It's about
Grimway.
$1,400 total cost delivered, and they charge $400.
And so the taxpayer is subsidizing the carrot growing operations. That is a global operation based on Indiana, I believe, the corporation. And so when you buy a bag of carrots, you've actually you're going to buy them twice.
Scan it twice
You
to self-checkout.
subsidized it on the front end, and then when you buy it, you're paying twice. The local Tehachapi property owner.
Well, I do remember being at a TCCWD board meeting a few years ago and sitting in the audience and listening to the representative from Grimway come up to the public comment speaker and talk about, "Hey, I just want to know, how much I'm going to be able to farm this year. I picked Tehachapi first because the water's cheapest here for us." And it's part of their bottom line is,
Well, sure.
is they they're looking at the cost, but that cost is determined by the board at TCCWD, and they just want to know how much they're going to farm and how much they're allocated.
Well, let's put it in a context here a little bit too, because the district has the ability to, achieve 19,000 something acre feet. Now, because of their pumping, the pipe size and this and that, they can pull up a maximum of 10,000 acre feet a year.
Even that I wouldn't agree with, but we can talk about that.
Okay. All right. Good enough. So, and that's plus or minus. And the state, it's up and down how much you're allocated per year. You look at those, but that's an opportunity to be able to smooth things for Tehachapi. And when the district brings up 4,000 or 5,000 acre feet, and nearly 100% of that goes to ag, and they won't even sell the city or Golden Hills a couple hundred acre feet out of the, let's say, 5,000 acre feet that's pumped up. We can't even get 100 acre feet from them, and we've already paid for it.
Don mentioned recently, I don't know if it was on a recording or if we would just pass in the hallway, we pay for access, which is denied. A part of our billing, our property taxes pays for access to SWP.
And it is interesting. So using Tom Neisler's own numbers, it's $1,400 an acre foot to get it, to deliver it to Cummings Valley. The customer pays $400 an acre foot. So the question should be, well, who pays the other $1,000 an acre foot? And the answer is the residents of the Tehachapi area pay $1,000 an acre foot for that water to get up. And how much of that do you get? Zero. So, for every acre foot of water that's delivered to an agricultural customer, the residents are subsidizing the cost by $1,000 an acre foot, and $400 of that is paid by the customer, by Grimway.
And I need to make the statement right now. I don't think Grimway wants to get in a big fight with anybody, right? Once this is exposed, and we're exposing it, they're not going to want people to know that they're heavily subsidized at this rate. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. It's not right. And, I wish Grimway would intervene, quite frankly, go to the district board and say, we need to, why can't Tehachapi have a balance? There is no balance. We are completely out of balance.
They tried that, not I won't say tried it, but it was brought up in the past, to Key's point, previous meetings. In that kind of same meeting, it was, look, I think we were fighting on a water priority ordinance that year. And they said, look, we don't care. Just tell us what we have so we can prepare. We don't mind if we need to share, but just let us know. I need to order seed, whatever. And just, staff, I need to know. Mm-hmm. But there are other conflicts that are preventing that from happening beyond their control, I guess you could say, because the way the land they lease does benefit the board. And so they, even to their credit, they've even said in the past, we don't mind splitting this up a little bit because we just need to plan. We just want to plan what we got to order, that sort of thing. But even that was stonewalled beyond their control because of the makeup of the board.
And we're not taking issue with the small local guy, the vineyards, any of the small producers. I mean, we host the farmers market every year.
I was just going to say, Key, we're all about the small guy.
And
the city puts our money where our mouth is with that.
And we want those. Mm-hmm. Those are an important part of our culture, our fiber. It's where the question really comes is these huge 18-wheelers that roll out of, the Cummings Valley, mm-hmm. tearing up the roads, mm-hmm. and it's being shipped overseas. Mm-hmm. Where's the benefit here?
I was
locally?
in Amsterdam years ago, Schiphol Airport, downtown Amsterdam, and went to grab a snack. Grimway carrots from Bakersfield. I was shocked. I thought, wow, halfway across the world, I'm eating Grimway carrots.
Yeah, which is cool. What a great model of American business that you can sell things and export it.
For sure.
But we kind of forget that things do need to be in a balance, and you do need to take care of the people that live here, and there should be something here for those that pay their property taxes, which means that money goes to TCCWD to have access to additional water to replenish our water supply.
Well, you got to think too, it's not just, there's a push nationally to make more here, right? Whether that's agriculture. There's even a push in California all of a sudden on a nice 180 to produce more oil in California. Gee, what a thought. Sitting on one of the biggest oil patches in the world, and we couldn't drill at it forever. But that extends beyond just commodities, right? It also extends into things like steel. We have the Pacific Steel Group is going to be hiring 300 to 400 people out in the desert when they're done with that. Greg and I just toured it. They're moving right along. They're looking at an opening of 27, I think. Again, those folks are going to want to live somewhere. They're going to want to live in the city. They're going to live in Golden Hills. They're going to live in Bear Valley, whatever it's going to be. Some may live in the Antelope Valley. But if we're trying to support the initiatives to keep stuff here, if we're going to use the term of, we got it. We're feeding the world. Well, we're also going to be, not only feeding the world, but we're defending the world with Edwards Air Force Base, who has got a housing shortage of their own. We've got other defense contractors getting large defense contracts for defense. Those workers got to be somewhere. And then we've got things like steel that are being produced in East Kern that, again, they're going to look for support services. And that's where this issue comes up of how do we support that if we're not getting a water supply? If it's all going to one thing and then the rest and heavily subsidized and we're not getting that back in return.
We're talking about such small numbers, a couple hundred acre feet a year compared to thousands of acre feet going the other way. And, if you don't grow, you die. There are communities around us that are stagnant and they're dying on the vine, right? And I'm not talking about paving paradise. I'm talking about appropriate growth. When we look at the city, and Golden Hills to a certain extent, we have the retail for the entire region. We have the healthcare. We have lots of recreational activity. And this is what the entire region uses. And that takes water. We provide water to the Parks District for West Park and Central Park free of charge. And I think, Chris, to you, Meadowbrook, right?
Yeah. Meadowbrook, we have the
and
same
so
agreement.
we're being, held back because we're providing benefits for this entire region and beyond in so many realms. Education, Costelloe is coming.
Yeah.
Great things.
And that's part of the planning of it. And some of the arguments made when you're trying to defend this subsidy, which is happening lately, it's being with a scare tactic of, we're trying to keep this thing rural. Well, guess what? Anything that is west of Tucker Road is rural and will remain rural forever.
And I have been saying this for years. I've been at the city 21 years, Key, and I've been saying that, growth needs to be targeted into the city limits. We're not expanding. We don't annex. Yeah. But that's because we want, you want the retail and the healthcare and the education, those sorts of things, not fully, but mostly in the city so that we can protect our beautiful county and countryside. That's in our general plan. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Waikiki Beach, Honolulu, paving paradise, right? They made a song about that. That's not who we are. Yeah. Just the opposite.
Yeah, and it's set up that way, that's incorporated cities. This happens all over the state. You go to incorporated cities that are surrounded by rural neighbors. The emphasis is on the city for the development. And even on the commercial side, they didn't build Walmart on Cummings Valley Road and Bear Valley Road for a reason, right? They wanted to be, the city is strategically located by the highway. There's a logistics benefit. There's traffic counts. Everybody in the valley to get to the freeway is using Tucker to get there. So there's a strategic placement part. And so that's the beauty of it. We'll take Walmart in the city limits. And then that way, if you want to drive 25 minutes from your home in Stallion or Bear Valley, great. It's there for you, convenient, but it's also not your neighbor. And the cities, they're designed for those urban uses to be your neighbor.
Right, and Golden Hills is beautiful. It was a master plan community with nice half acre, 1 acre, up on and on and on. You guys are doing a beautiful job with the nature
trail.
Thank you for that. Major Park, yeah. Some really cool things are happening in this valley, but we need the resources at our fingertips so that we can manage it appropriately.
Right, and that's part of the dynamics of the city is all the money spent, all the properties purchased, the money stays in Tehachapi. In Golden Hills, it all goes down to the county.
That sucking sound you hear, it goes down to Metro right. Bakersfield. And I was going to your point, Chris, and Corey's earlier, Walmart is tax revenue. What does that mean? That means we can provide a 24/7 police department. We are the only police department in the entire region that's 24/7. Dispatch on down, right? If you call 911 or you need to do a child exchange or whatever, we are there for you. Right? We have political boundaries, but if we're called in certain areas, we go and help people. That takes money to do that. And it's the bigger, larger economic model, right? You need electricity. Southern California Edison needs reliable electricity coming and going, right? We had this PSPS nonsense not too long ago, but we have reliable power now. We need reliable water resources. They are there. The water is there. The district is choosing to allocate it out to others and not the appropriate customers, which is Golden Hills and the City of Tehachapi.
Well, and then they'll tell you that there's contracts in place, right? M&I agreements. But if you read that thing, which I've done multiple times, there's no teeth to it. They can enact a priority ordinance that just destroys the whole contract, then you got to wait for next year. I mean,
And I would challenge anybody to go to the last priority ordinance they passed, which was probably, 2-3 years ago, and see what's prioritized. See what, and it goes down to the crop specific of what's prioritized and where any recharge water that we would use to grow on in the future is placed, and just conveniently what crops are prioritized over every other use in the valley. It's pretty eye-opening.
Well, and then, I remember not so long ago, Don, correct me on this, check me, but, we request banking water every year. We bank water. Like Chris, you've done an amazing job banking water for that rainy day, if you will. But, it's sold to us a year or two after the water is brought up the hill and banked in Tehachapi Cummings Bank, if you will. And so you can't run a business that way. I can't know that I'm going to have the water if I don't have the water when I order it.
Yeah, and we're
Not 2 years later.
Yeah, it's basically water that's left over.
Yeah, so
They
if the
say,
farmer
"Oh, I
didn't
think-
buy it, then they're like, okay, well, you can go ahead and buy it, Greg.
We have a little bit left over. We'll sell it to you
Right.
as bank water.
And
That's a silly business model.
And the problem with us for that as a city that doesn't, so we don't pre-entitle things. So like Golden Hills, you brought up in the past, right? Starting originally, Boise Cascade, they pretty much entitled all the lots.
Right.
A whole subdivision recorded. The maps are the maps, the lots are the lots, and those can be built whenever they'd like.
3,800 lots. There's already infrastructure in place. They're
Yes.
just ready to be developed.
Correct. Bear Valley Stallion, very similar.
Same way.
Right. Same way. Same sort of thing. Kind of failed model of a resort community that turned into a full-time residential community. However, we don't operate like that, right? So we have big chunks of land that people come in and say, I want to turn this into 40 homes. Okay, great. But then we have to go through the environmental process in the state of California. That requires the water supply to be reliable for 20 plus years. And this is where we're being stonewalled and sued in some cases because Tehachapi Cummings is aware of that and they know that. They're weaponizing the CEQA process to stop the development in the tracks. And that's everything from residential to commercial. And I'll even go ahead and say this. Saracoso Community College is being threatened to be sued. They haven't even sent their document out, but they met with Tehachapi Cummings and they said, well, you need to buy 2 acre feet of water, even though Don just said we have a, give or take 100-ish extra, but they told them you need to buy to offset what the city is going to give you.
So you're telling me
No, you
a
don't.
regional higher education, when is the last time you heard of somebody designing and building a new college campus in any town USA?
Yeah.
Right?
It wasn't
came
a
to
heavily
Tehachapi
subsidized
and they
one,
said,
yeah.
you're a growing area. We want to serve our clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
The youth and adults, right? A community college. And they want to spend millions of dollars, right? They bought the property across from the old Kmart.
That was $1 million alone.
Right? And they're designing, and they were told by the district, you need to go buy water.
They said,
when in fact, buy water rights.
Yeah.
When
to
in
offset
fact,
what you're going to take from the
there's
city.
plenty of water from the State Water Project. And every city up and down the state uses State Water Project for their health and their growth.
But we're not even asking for State Water Project for the Saracoso. Saracoso is, we've got it in our system, right? We've got it under our control, and even the 2 acre feet, that's going to be at full build out. If they ever build a permanent campus, they've got some modulars they're bringing in, dolling them up, putting in infrastructure, and then maybe one day they'll build. And so at full build out, it's like 1.8 acre feet. Normally it's going to be like 1, right? And that is so we'll see. They should be out publicly with their environmental document shortly. And, it's one of those ones like how dare you want to even push back on something like that? It's benefiting high school students today, future workforce training, go down the list. I mean, it's insane that conversation was even had.
Well, look at how many young people that impacts that are leaving Tehachapi, that are having to drive or take the bus to either Bakersfield College or Antelope Valley College, when we can have an expanded footprint of Saracoso College right here and keep the kids here. So they're not traveling that 40 miles down the hill and back.
The time, the money, the safety, all that.
Huge.
Well, I've always thought it's easy to audit a building, right? You have inputs and you have outputs. When's the last time Tehachapi Cummings has went out to a grower in the middle of the afternoon to audit their irrigation practices? I mean, 2:30 in the afternoon, it's blowing 30 miles an hour.
Onto
and
Banducci.
there's 20 acres of water going everywhere.
Well, and every time I go out to my friends in the Cummings Valley, see there's rivers. Literally, I won't even say a creek or a stream. It's rivers of water running down Palisier and in different areas. And
Well, I saw broken and sprinkler heads shooting, 100 feet into the air the other day while they were, doing their spray irrigation.
Just one day of that waste could fulfill Golden Hills and City's needs for the year.
Stuber and Highline for
Honestly.
weeks. Those sprinklers in the afternoon would blow onto Highline as cars are going 65 miles an hour and was never touched.
You can obviously feel our frustration.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about that Grimway footprint and how many acres they actually, and who owns that land. Well, how many acres does Grimway farm?
Yeah, the numbers I came up with are about 1,700 acres of farmland that are leased to Grimway. And again, they don't own any property in Tehachapi, but they do lease. About 1,700 is the number that I came up with.
So they don't pay any property taxes because they lease.
And this is all, and Chris, we've had this conversation. This is where kind of Golden Hills comes in, right? Your water situation's different. We've talked about that. You don't have the CEQA requirements and the water supply long-term required, because of a lot of your entitled spots. But really, your involvement centers around kind of the ethical concerns around everything that's happening. Your board has kind of echoed that as well.
Right. We're sitting on 4,200 acre feet of banked water. I know how many lots we still have left to build. We have a pretty steady growth rate. I mean, I can do calculations out to 2060. It's a lot easier for Golden Hills to understand our water situation. Mm-hmm. So why are we involved? It's not residential versus ag. It's if Tehachapi Cummings board was full of developers and real estate agents, somebody else would be having the opposite conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as simple as it gets to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's no, this is outlined in the grand jury report in 2023, and no action was taken on that. But even going back to one of our council members, Michael Davies, former mayor, used to work for RSI Petroleum, and he was a fleet management guy, right? Well, RSI delivered our fuel well before he was on the council, but he got elected to council, and our attorneys looked at it and said he doesn't get any additional money if they sell more fuel to the city. He's a fleet maintenance guy, management guy. Doesn't get commissions and that sort of thing. But you know what? Just because of the fact that he works for that company, probably wouldn't be a bad idea, just so there's no perceived conflict, that he recuses himself. So for 6 years and change before he retired, he would have to, as we approve the payment to RSI, he'd have to state his conflict. I work for RSI Petroleum. I need to recuse myself. He'd stand up. He'd walk out of the room. Mm-hmm. The council would then discuss, and then they'd vote on
I would
the payment.
actually escort him out.
Yeah.
And,
and
chaperone him, and then we'd be pulled back in after the check run was approved, pretty much. Yeah.
And he didn't even have
It was the right thing to do.
Right.
It was the right thing to do.
And he stated that conflict, so it was clear, right? I'm an employee of this company, but yet there was no additional financial, benefit for him. However, we did the right thing, and it was kind of a pain and awkward to do it every meeting, but we did, and so that's not happening in this case across multiple facets.
It was worth the trouble, and he wasn't even, like you point out, there was no financial.
He wasn't a sales guy.
He was an
a commission
employee.
guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to quote one part of the letter that the two of you drafted. And it's, the district's mission is to ensure the most reliable, cost-effective water supply for its customers. Sounds great, but honestly, TCCWD only caters to one customer. And if you're okay with that, then let it be, But it's about time that we start to pay attention to what's going on. And I think that was between the two of you guys coming together and deciding that we have to speak and start to inform the community. It's important that people pay attention to what's going on.
Well, I've been, again, at the city for many years, and it's always about truth, honesty, taking the high road, working for the citizens, and doing the right thing. And I think that shows, Key, right? Our organization, along with Golden Hill CSD, we're really proud of our team, and we're really proud of the product that we deliver, whatever it happens to be, because we live here and it matters, and we have found a flaw that needs to be corrected. And that's what I'm working on. That's what Chris is working on. That's why we're here. We're not going to overlook or just glaze over something that is wrong. It is my duty, our duty, to correct this wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, there's mechanisms in place for every agency to understand their needs and then what reliability is, right? We have the rump that we try to accomplish, where I was going through notes just this morning on when the last time we heard about the rump. It was November of
And
last
the rump,
year.
let the public know, what's the rump?
It's a region urban water management plan. It really dictates the next 5 years and then 5 years after that of what you can expect, what you know is coming down the pipeline. It's it should have been a data-driven endeavor, but it really wasn't.
It's a decade out of compliance now, by the way.
Right, which is
2015.
going to affect certainly the city and now Golden Hills based on some parameters. So,
Right, and how we can apply for and receive grants, all kinds of
And that's a
fun
beautiful
things, you
document
know?
because everybody has to sign off on it, right? I mean, everyone's got to say, yep, I agree. 2015 rump is clear between native water rights available, between SWP, even the unreliability of the SWP water because of what the state allocates and doesn't allocate in certain years. There's plenty of water. That's what basically
Well, and the
2015
engineering
rump said.
firm that was hired to head up the rump, they actually published, the draft said there's plenty of water, we're all good. Tehachapi Cummings didn't like it, and so they just shelved it. Fired him, basically.
Yep, yeah, because the city and Golden Hills were not going to sign something that, and the engineers weren't going to sign off on something of
I
which the
will
data
not-
did not back it up.
I signed a lot of things, and every single thing I signed is true and correct. And I would not put my name on that.
Yeah, so we're now two cycles out of compliance with the rump, and the last one was 2015.
Right.
So just think about how much stuff do you use that's still 10 years old, like maybe other than a vehicle.
Well, we use a water right system that's 50 years old. So,
Well said. Well said.
And with that, we're about to release a series of podcasts on water in Tehachapi, and we're really going to break things down into fine detail in these episodes. So those are coming. They're right around the corner. And I wanted to stick to the letter, which we really have, that you guys co-authored, that came out a few weeks ago in the Tehachapi News. We put it on our social media. It opened some eyes, but we wanted to make sure we talked to this audience that listens to it and to hear the two voices that help put that together. So as we start to wrap things up, Chris, anything in closing that you want to share that we haven't talked about regarding, what is the letter or maybe something else?
a lot of the data that was pulled from that letter was pulled directly from TCCWD's website. We talked about the subsidized from the property taxes to their sales. I pulled it straight from their financials, and 32% is water sales and 65% is subsidized through property taxes. I mean, that's straight from Tehachapi Cummings. Anybody has the opportunity to go to any public agency and gather the information straight from them. I mean, whether
Well, sometimes, because sometimes you have to sue them in court when they refuse to give you said documents.
Public records, you have a week or so with some anomalies, but you can extend that a couple days typically. But we've been trying to get information. We had to sue them. It's been 1 year.
We still
had
don't
to
have everything.
sue them, and we still don't have everything we've asked for. 1 year. That's shameful.
Right. And then I think that comes back to why is Golden Hills interested? We're sitting on water.
What are they hiding? Still.
Well, yeah, do the right thing. I mean, we all want to work together, and obviously, Ag, I've heard the same thing in meetings. They want to work together. Everybody wants to utilize the facilities to the best of our abilities, but it seems that there's a lot of resistance.
Resisting public records requests. And what does that do? It's just causing the taxpayers on all sides to pay that bill, right? They're suing us because they're trying to restrict us from looking at public documents.
Yeah. And, to the transparency as a whole, I would encourage people to go to their meetings, however, they're 3:00 on a Wednesday afternoon.
That's convenient.
Can you manage? I mean, if the city had 3:00, I mean, we have one 3:00 meeting a year. It's our budget meeting because it takes 3 hours to complete it, right? I mean, that's it. If we had city council meetings at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, that's a problem. If Golden Hills CSD had instead of having it at 6 p.m., you had it at 2:00 in the afternoon, that would be a problem for your residents. And so the transparency is all out of whack between public documents to just public interaction. 3:00. I mean, come on. Most of us are working.
Totally unrelated, but probably not. When they put up the fencing around their entire facility the last, 3 years ago, to me that was, I understand security, but you're a public agency.
So when you're talking about fencing, you're talking about a 6 or 8 foot chain link fence with concertina wire on top, and you have to ring a buzzer to try to get into the compound.
It's just odd.
For God's sakes.
Just odd.
What's going on?
Yeah. And, one more thing, when we talked about the property tax subsidy, it's something to, if you're not thinking about it now, think about it in the future. They have the ad valorem taxability, which is at cost. So whatever it costs is what they're going to charge you on your property tax bill.
They don't have to go to the voters.
They don't have to go to the voters.
So ad valorem is Latin for we can do it without asking your permission.
We can back in numbers to make them good.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So you've heard probably statewide, and even some of this letter generated some conversation about this. Someone said the solution is the Delta Conveyance Project, which has been talked about for, I don't know, at least a decade. I mean, it was 4 tunnels, then it was 2, now it's 1, trying to get water around the Delta to not mess with the smelt, whatever. Fewer and fewer agencies, at least up north, they don't want to buy into it. Like, we're up here in the mountains. We don't need it, but Southern California and Central California is all about it. The individual share of which Tehachapi Cummings said we're all on board for that project for their district and our tax dollars is $80 million. $80 million is what it would cost Tehachapi Cummings County Water District, hence all the taxpayers in this region, $80 million for our share of the Delta Conveyance Project.
I'm going to sell my house because I don't want my property taxes. I don't need to be paying for that.
And for
I'll
what?
rent.
To go back to all of our other points, if you've got a system that's heavily limited, can't even pull up, on a great year, all you're given, why would you pay for more reliability on a system of which is not going to the people that are going to pay for it? $80 million, I mean, that's insane. And that's all going to get spread across the entire valley to pay for what? An increased subsidy? I mean, you might as well scan those carrots about 175 times every time you buy them at the store, because that's what it's going to look like for the next 30 years.
Right, Mr. Nicer's all in. He said, I'm all in.
All in for this. And for what? What really should be happening, if they're in on something like this, great. We should all be in on this. We should all figure out how to, make their system way more reliable. Even the new motors they put in are not working to their full capacity, which is a shame. Those aren't cheap. We got to increase size. Maybe we got to increase motors. Maybe we got to, and then obviously then together we push the state for more allocation. Then that water is distributed evenly. 80 million is still a little steep, but at least there's some sort of benefit. And the way it stands now, you're looking at an $80 million bill coming down the pike here very soon.
The water district should be, if I were the CEO of the district, we would provide leadership, right, in the water world. When we're talking about state water project, we're talking about water rights, we're talking about KER, IPR, indirect potable reuse, right? Our sewer water, we treat it to a higher level, we inject it back in. These are normal things that are happening, but we have a water monitor that does not engage with the local water districts. Golden Hills, City of Tehachapi, others, they're not providing leadership, a vision, a plan for the future, right? We're stagnant, and it's a serious problem.
There's so much here to digest, and I know the listeners probably going to have to hit repeat on a lot of the things that we've talked about.
The podcast.
But you also mentioned we talked about a lot of different topics here, in the last 30 or 40 minutes, but we're going to break each one of those topics down for the listener. And I know Maya's in the room with us, and she's heading up those interviews. And so look forward to the specific interviews and topics about, we hit the tops of the waves, I think, this afternoon, but we're going to dive deeper into these.
In that series also, we'll be answering questions from people. So there will be opportunities for people to submit questions to the podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really excited about that, and being able to answer questions that people have, as well as, us just sharing information that we get questions out in the public when we're out doing stuff. So I get people asking me things all the time about our water. I don't understand how this works. And so we'll be able to answer some of those questions in this podcast series.
That's great.
We'll invite people to send their questions right now. Media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We'll take those questions. We'll implement them into the podcast in that water series. And if anyone listening has a question for anyone that is on the show today, if it's for Chris from Golden Hills, or it's from Greg representing the city, or Don, or Corey, myself, please send it to media@TehachapiCityHall.com. Guys, before we wrap it up, anything in closing?
Thank you for your time.
Chris, we appreciate you coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And I think that this joint letter, is powerful. I think when two agencies step up and say, there's something not right going on, you need to pay attention.
And it's an easy fix.
Right.
It's an easy fix. Swallow your pride. Let's move forward. We all continue to prosper as a region. That's the bottom line.
And this is one of those things too, we never wanted to go here. I guess we could say that, right? This is not a battle that we should have, nor do we necessarily want to have to wage over, something like Greg said is easily corrected. But there always comes a time, in this business, in any business, where you just have to stand up and say enough's enough. And, we're all there, but we don't take this lightly of doing this because it's just part of the job. And now it's that time.
Time to do the right thing, benefit the entire community. All right, guys. Thank you very much for the time. Again, we invite everyone to stay tuned to this series that's coming about Tehachapi's water. We get down into the facts. We break it down into multiple episodes to make it easy to digest because we want you to understand. And hopefully today's conversation, a lot of information, but hopefully you're able to take something away and it created a question for you and you need an answer for that. And I just want you to know that you can send that question to us, or maybe you take that question to that other agency that we talked about today. All right, guys, thank you for the time, and we'll catch you again soon here on Tehachapod.
You've been listening to Tehachapod. If you have a question, a thought, or a suggestion, email media@tehachapicityhall.com. We'll catch you again soon right here on Tehachapod.